Jim, good to see you, brother.
What's up, Rich? How you
How's it
doing?
been? Good. Been a while, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When's the last time we were together?
Probably Rangers playoffs from last
That
year.
long ago? Wow.
Yeah.
Shit.
We've talked on the phone a lot.
Yeah, but not
but we haven't seen each other in person.
I thought it would have been the Yankees or something like that. After
Yeah,
that.
like you haven't gone this year.
I haven't. That's
Yeah.
right. How's it
Yeah.
been?
Good. Good. I mean, listen, they're in first place and they're playing good enough. Unfortunately, Devin Williams has got the curse of the beard.
That's right.
And,
Yeah.
try to change you try to change history and
That's
karma
what
gets you.
happens.
Karma
I
gets you.
didn't think of that. I didn't
Yeah.
even think of that. Wow.
As soon as it happened, I was being interviewed by Outkick in Nashville,
Sure.
that show, and they asked me about what I thought about the change in policy, and I said, well, I don't play nowadays, so I don't really have much of a choice. But if the players are in agreement, that's their choice. I personally don't. I wouldn't agree with it. That's what made the Yankees the Yankees. And I was kind of surprised because when they interviewed Johnny Damon about it, he really got like, no. He goes, I think it's ridiculous that they're changing it. I knew when I signed with the Yankees that I had to cut my hair, but that was part of being a New York Yankee, and that's what made it so special. And so I was on this Outkick show, and I was just saying, the problem is when you start messing around with, tradition, it can bite you. It can bite you.
I got a picture of Johnny when he was up at the old office at 99 Park, and we got him in a Yankee helmet with his beard.
That's funny.
It was pretty funny, and that's obviously before this. But that's interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like I said, but the Yankees are playing well. They're off to a good start. Mets are playing great.
Playing good.
The Knicks are now in the second round of the playoffs.
And the Rangers look good.
Our Rangers stunk. It's the one team we want to do well that didn't. But New York's it's going pretty good right now.
That's good.
Going pretty good right now.
So let's start from where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
The Big Red Machine.
That's right. So one of the coolest stories you told me was about Bench and Rose. Take me through that day, if you don't mind.
I grew up as a Pete Rose idol. Pete Rose was my idol growing up. I used to hit like him.
Does he deserve to be in a Hall?
Yeah, 100%.
I agree.
100%. I mean, he's asked not to be put in it now that he's passed away.
Yep.
So hopefully they'll honor that.
I hope they do.
But we'll see. But no, so I grew up.
So let me ask you on that real quick. The family can't keep him out, right? If his
they don't have to accept it. They might put him in the Hall of Fame, but there'll be nobody there to
take the honor
to do the speech.
Okay.
They might ask a former teammate, but I think if I was one of those guys, I'd say no, I'm not doing it. So. But anyway, I grew up number 4. I wore number 14. I wanted to be Pete Rose. I used to have his batting stance. I played third base in the outfield like he did. And then I was 14 years old, and I was at a spring training. My best friend was a guy named Tommy Brenneman, who used to be, his dad was the announcer. And they asked our family to go to spring training with them. We stayed at the team hotel. I got to see all the players, meet the guys. Once in a while, Tommy and I would be able to go over to the park, and we'd be the little bat boy things and mess around the locker room. And I just kept watching Pete every day. Like, this guy was the worst athlete compared to any other players.
Wow.
Between Foster, Griffey, and all the guys that were superstars. Yeah. But Pete outworked them all. He just had that work ethic. And it really stuck with me as a 14-year-old kid just watching him. And one day, they were shooting a TV segment. And it was hitting with Pete Rose and catching with Johnny Bench. And they needed 2 little kids to be their dummies to kind of show all these different drills that they were doing. And they brought me and Tommy in, and I was like, oh, come on, Pete, pick me. And sure enough, Pete picked Tommy. So Tommy did the hitting series with Pete Rose, and I ended up doing catching with Johnny Bench. We do the whole segment. We get done filming, and all of a sudden, he calls me over, and he goes, hey, kid. He said, are you a catcher? I said, no, Mr. Bench, I want to be like Pete. And he said, well, my dad told me when I was your age, that catching was the quickest way to the big leagues, and it's worked out pretty good for me. He said, you got some pretty good skills. You ought to think about it. And at that time, I was 13, 14 years old. I was playing basketball. I was doing other things. I really was. And I think he could kind of tell that I wasn't like buying into it. And he said, well, maybe this will help. And he took his catcher's mitt off and he signed it and he handed it to me.
Oh, wow.
I went home that night and said, Dad, I'm going to be a catcher. And from that point on, I became a catcher. And up until I broke my foot 4 days before the draft out of high school, I was catching. And then all of a sudden, I didn't catch for 3 years in college, and I never got drafted. And I finally went back to a Jayhawk league, which is the Cape Cod League here in the East Coast. And I asked the coach, could I catch? Because I wanted to start catching. And sure enough, after I caught 3 games, Yankee scout came up to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing catching?" I said, "Well, I can catch." College coach wouldn't let me. And he said, "Well, we want to sign you." And I ended up signing with the New York
Wow,
Yankees.
that's awesome.
And I always told, so 2006, Johnny Bench is in our locker room at a Hall of Fame game. And I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, Johnny, I never got a chance to thank you for my career." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you probably don't remember, but real young kid, you were filming a segment for Wild World of Sports with hitting with Pete Rose and catching with Johnny Bench." And he just looked at me and he stopped me and he goes, "No way." I said, "Yeah, I was that kid." I
That's
said,
awesome.
"You gave me your catcher's mitt, and I became a catcher. And the only reason I got back to the big leagues, got signed, was because I went back to catching, and that's because of you." And he was like, "Can I tell that story?" I go, "Yeah, tell it." I go,
I
"That's."
told you the best way to
Yeah.
finish that off is giving him the glove back signed with your name.
Well, that was just it. That
Yeah.
was so funny because people were always like, "Oh, do you have that glove?" I like, "No, I used it every single day in
That's
high
awesome.
school until it fell apart."
That's right. That's great.
But
You should have given him a signed glove.
yeah, that would have been good.
That would have been
That would
good.
have been good.
So, sorry, I went to get a drink. So, you start off Cincinnati. You're playing. Where'd you play college ball?
I played 2 years at a junior college because I was supposed to be drafted in the first round out of Cincinnati.
Okay,
Barry Larkin was the number 1 player out of Cincinnati. We were teammates,
I remember that.
and I was supposed to be the number 2 pick
Oh wow.
out of Cincinnati. 4 days before the draft, I went out and played tennis. I ended up fracturing the side of my foot. While I was out playing tennis, my dad got a phone call from 2 scouts, and the 2 scouts called him and said, "Hey, we want to draft your kid." And back then they used to talk to the parents, "Do your kids want to go to college? Because we don't want to waste a pick on him if he wants to go to college." And so my dad said, "I'll talk to him when he gets home and call me back tomorrow." When I come home, I have a little air cast on my foot.
Oof.
And he's like, "What the hell did you do?" I said, "Not a big deal. 2 weeks, I'll be back playing again, Dad. It's just a small thing." He said, "Oh, it's a big deal. I just got a call from these 2 scouts. They want to sign you. Now I got to tell them when they call me back tomorrow that you got a broken leg." So sure enough, the scouts call, he tells them, and they said, "You know what? We're going to pass on the draft, but we'll come back in 5 weeks and watch him play." They came back 5 weeks later to watch me play. Had a great tournament. I still couldn't squat and catch because I was playing the outfield and third base, but I hit like 800 in the tournament. And they said, "We want to sign your kid." My dad said, "Okay, give him $10,000. They said, "We can only give him 5." My dad said, "Screw that, he's going to college." So I ended up going to junior college for 2 years in Georgia because you can get drafted every year in junior college.
Yep.
But I never got drafted. Then I ended up going to University of Kentucky for a year. I had a great year, didn't get drafted, but I still was not catching. And then when I went out to Hayes, Kansas between my junior and senior year and started catching, that's when the Yankees
That's when
signed
the
me.
Yankees signed you.
But the story, the irony of that entire story, Rich, is in 1996 in Atlanta, Fulton County Stadium, when I hit my most famous home run for the Yankees, the 2 scouts that wouldn't give me the $5,000, they were sitting in John Sherholtz's box.
That's awesome.
They were brave scouts. And they said, "Do not tell him for $5,000, this would have never happened."
Wow.
And if you think about that, from 1996 on, the Braves never got back to the World Series till a couple years ago.
That's right.
And we went on to win and create a dynasty. That's how big that home run and that 96 championship was.
That's I didn't think I don't remember that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty
So,
cool.
Yeah.
So, when did you start playing?
I was playing since 8 years old.
No, well, when did you get to the bigs?
I got the big leagues in 1990. I got signed in 1986.
Played
3.5 years in the minor leagues. Got called up in June of 1990
for the Yanks.
for the Yankees. Yeah.
So you played with them all the way to the farms, and you came
Yeah,
up.
4 years in 3.5 years in the minor leagues. First 7 years in the big leagues.
Who was coaching you down below?
Buck Showalter.
Buck,
I
right?
had Buck at 3 different levels,
Okay.
and then of course I had Stump Merrill in AAA. And then when Bucky Dent got fired, I got called up the next day because Stump was the manager,
Oh, Stump was the manager.
and he had me in AAA. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So then you get called up to the Yanks. You stay up on your first call up?
I stayed up all the way through the whole season in 1990. Started the season in 91. Got sent down for I think 3 months, and then I got called back up.
And then, when was you knew you were there moment?
92. 92 when the season started, Buck Showalter took over as manager of the Yankees and called me in the office and said, "You're not going to play much." Yeah, I said, "Well, why not?" He said, "Because you are more valuable on my bench." He said, "You're almost like a relief pitcher that I can put you in." He goes, "There's not a lot of young kids that can hit coming off the bench. You can do that." And I've seen it, he said, "So I know you're not going to be happy, but
Is what it is.
it's how important to the team you're going to be." And I ended up, I think, with 180 at bats maybe that season. And I had a good season. 6, 7 home runs. Was very productive. And then in 93 and 94 were my two big years where I got a chance to play a little bit more because that was when Don Mattingly was starting to get hurt.
Mhm.
And so I would fill in for Donnie 6, 8 weeks at a time.
Oh,
And
so you played first too, right?
I played first base, third base, outfield, and caught.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons I could hit, number one, but number two, play 5 different positions. And therefore, the value that I had to a team was you didn't have to carry another third baseman, another first baseman, or another outfielder because I could do all that.
You're like Oswaldo in a way,
Well, exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Same.
Very similar, yeah.
That's interesting. So 95 comes along. And you always say that was a bigger home run than 96 to you.
Well, it was a bigger moment for
For
me.
you. That's what I say. Yeah, for
because
you.
it was a walk-off.
Take me through that. Like,
Yeah.
what's going through your mind? Like, what's the situation like?
Well, it's a great story because it was a 15-inning game. But in the 12th inning, I came up with a chance to win the game. And I came up and I ended up on a 3-1 pitch hitting a weak ground ball back to the pitcher. And I walked up back in the old stadium. We had a little runway up to the locker room. And I went back in the runway with my bat and I just started breaking it and like slamming it all over the place and, cussing and everything else. And all of a sudden coming down the stairs as I'm doing this, it was David Cohn. And he watches me and he sees me. And after I get done, I look up and I go, "What?" He goes, "Dude, I'm just impressed." He said, "You've caught 12 innings and you still have that kind of energy?" I go, and because he kind of broke the ice, he goes, "You're going to get another chance. Don't worry." And so sure enough, I go back out. We get to the 15th inning. I'm standing on the, getting ready to go to on deck circle. And Showalter comes up to me and he goes, "Hey, this is it." He goes, "Mike Stanley's coming in to catch if we don't win this inning." He said, "Make this at bat count." And I went up there and I hit the walk-off 2-run home run.
2 or 3?
Yeah. What's that?
3-run home run.
No, that was a 2-run home
Oh, that was a 2-run home
Yeah.
run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pat Kelly had just gotten walked and I hit the home run.
That's right. And that was in the stadium, or was
This was
that?
the 90,
that was in
and
the
it
last
was a
night?
walk-off.
Game 2, right?
Game 2 of the playoffs against the
right.
Seattle Mariners, who we got in a bunch of fights with that year.
That's right.
And it was such a we went up 2-0, thinking all we had to do was win 1 out of 3 in Seattle, and we could bring Don Mattingly back again for his send-off. Because
Wow.
the whole theme of the 95 season was get Don Mattingly to the playoffs because he hadn't been.
That's right.
And so we did that against Seattle. But unfortunately, we went to Seattle and we lost 3 straight games. So that home
Last game
run,
you had him too.
yeah, exactly. And that home run kind of became a footnote. But even though it was such a great moment for me,
It's a great story.
Yeah.
That is an awesome. What does it feel like running those bases?
it was unbelievable.
Especially at
It
Yankee
was,
Stadium.
well, it was so. If you talk to people that were actually at the game, like now, there's a million people that say they were there,
right,
but if you actually talk to the people that were at the game, after the game was over with, of course, I'm being interviewed by ESPN and Fox and everybody, and I'm sitting on the bench and I'm looking out, and they're still singing New York, New York, like 16 times in a row.
Wow.
And they're not leaving the stadium. That no one wanted to end that moment. And it was really kind of a cool situation. And of course, once we get beat 3 games, we don't get to come back.
That's right.
But it was really, honestly, it was also a very valuable lesson for me as a player going, individual accomplishments is great, but if you don't win, it doesn't mean anything.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And if you win that series, you honestly believe you go on and win the World Series in '95 too, or no?
I think we had a great chance at it, yeah.
Better than '96, or?
Well,
that was '94, right?
That was 95.
95. 94 was a strike year.
94 was a strike year. We would have gone to the World Series against the Montreal
That's
Expos.
right.
And as much as we wanted to feel sorry for losing the World Series that year, we couldn't feel that sorry for ourselves because the Montreal Expos actually lost baseball
That's right.
because of that.
Yeah.
And there was never baseball in Montreal ever again.
Do you beat Montreal that year?
No. Heck no.
That's
Did
what I thought.
Rich,
Look at that squad.
you got Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, Davey Martinez, or
That's right.
the other Martinez, Dennis Martinez. John Wetland was the closer. Larry Walker, Moses Alou. I mean, these guys were stacked. And I mean, I think we would have given them a good battle, but no, we weren't on that level.
Equipped.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then all of those, then they went to Seattle, a lot of those guys. Not all of them.
Well, no, so the next year, Tino Martinez and Jeff Nelson get traded to us, to the Yankees.
That's right, 96.
Yeah, and we give them Sterling Hitchcock and the third baseman, Russell Davis.
Okay.
And then Tino and them, Tina comes in, and of course he's booed off the field because he's
For
taking
Seattle.
over for Don Mattingly.
And you came from Seattle and
Yeah,
beat you guys, yeah?
exactly. So up until a July rainy day when Tino finally hits a home run, it's like literally Michael Kay was doing the game and said, "This is officially Tino Martinez making himself a Yankee."
Oh, I
And
remember
from that
that,
point on, he relaxed because I'm sure he felt the pressure. But from that point on, he relaxed and ended up having a great year. And we get back to the World Series in '96.
So what's that like? You get to the World Series for the first time, you're sitting there, game one of the World Series. Who did you beat to get to the World Series that year?
So we actually beat the Baltimore Orioles,
It
and
was with the catch, right?
Cal Ripken Jr. Yeah, during that series.
That's right.
But the irony of that last game before we went to the World Series, Cal Ripken was up to make the last out, and he grounded out to Derek Jeter, the new phenom
That's right.
at shortstop. And I was catching, and Derek makes the play. Tino makes a good scoop at first base, and we celebrate. But then all the attention is turned to Joe Torre, who never had been in a World Series in all of his years,
They were talking shit
was
about him.
finally going to a World Series.
That's right.
And just the tears that he had and the emotion that was going through him, it was pretty special. And of course, I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 on that '96 team.
Yeah, me too.
Because you had Doc Gooden, Darryl Strawberry coming back from drugs. You had David Cohn getting an aneurysm in April and coming back in August, which we never thought we'd see him again.
That's right.
And pitching a 7-inning no-hitter on his first day back,
That's right. Yeah.
uplifting the entire team for the rest of the season. And then, of course, Joe Torre's brother getting a heart right before the World Series started. It was pretty special.
That is a special year.
Yeah.
So you get to the World Series, game one. What is that feeling like?
Game one, it's in New York. We get rained out, so we have to play the next day.
Yep.
And then, of course, Andy Pettit was the starting pitcher.
So that means you caught, right?
I was catching, and we get shellacked 12 to, I think it's 12 to 2, 12 to 4, something like that. Andy just didn't have his good stuff. He was very nervous. It was, huge game.
Yep.
Couldn't get ahead in the count. Gave up a couple home runs. And then, we just kind of swiped it off as, okay, that's just one. And then Greg Maddux comes out the next night and throws 84 pitches to beat us in 9 innings.
84
Yeah,
pitches.
and it was like, literally, it's like watching a game today. It was over in 2 hours, and we're like, what just happened? We're down 2-0. But what happened was the Atlanta Braves were interviewed after the game, and they said, we're just so happy we swept 2 because now we don't have to come back there because their wives were getting beers thrown at them. It was not it was the typical Bronx Zoo,
Yep.
and people did not like, and they didn't want to come back. So on the way down to Atlanta, Joe Torre pulled up the article and said, "Guys, we don't have to win 3. I know I told George, that's what I told George we'd do, but we don't have to. All we have to do is get this series back to New York." So then we go down, and of course, David Cohn wins game 3.
Yep.
Bernie Williams hits a nice little home run to give us some insurance runs. We win that game, but then all of a sudden, Kenny Rogers gets named Game 4 starter. And Kenny had a horrible year. And everybody was all over Joe for giving him the opportunity to start. And sure, Joe was hoping Kenny would go out and prove everybody wrong. And unfortunately, he didn't. He went out and gave up 6 runs. We were down 6-0 by the 3rd inning.
Wow.
And
You're not playing that game.
I wasn't playing. By 6-0, I was like, okay, this is over. I'm not going to play today.
Yeah.
But then the catching coach reminded me. He said, Jimmy, this is a National League game. There could be a switch at any time. You need to be ready. And so I started getting ready, mentally ready again. And then sure enough, Joe's walking down the dugout going, guys, we just got to chip away. We just got to chip away. And then in the 6th, I think it was the 6th or 6th inning, I think it was, we went out and we put up 3 runs. And actually it was the 7th inning. And then O'Neill pinch hit for Girardi and struck out with first and second. And then Tino pinch hit and he struck out. And all of a sudden it kind of deflated the entire dugout. Like that was our chance. That was all, and while that 7th inning was going on and Mike Pilecki was pitching for the Braves, Mark Wohlers, who was their closer, got up. And Mark Wohlers in that day was kind of like the Mariano Rivera of the Yankees.
Huge, yeah.
And so
Was he throwing like 100 and something?
Exactly, yeah. And Pat Kelly was sitting next to me on the bench. And when we saw Wohlers get up, and he goes, all right, well, at least we didn't get swept. because that's kind of the attitude we had. Like, they're bringing in their closer, and we're done. We can't score off that guy. He closed the '95 World Series. He had 37 out of 37 saves that year, and he hadn't given up a run yet in the postseason.
Right.
So there was no chance that we thought. And sure enough, we go out, and then of course the top of the eighth inning, we come in, and Charlie Hayes gets a swinging bunt. Strawberry gets the base hit. Mariano Duncan comes up, and it's a routine double play ball, but Belliard boots it and gets the one out.
That's right. Yeah.
Now I come up. Well, in the meantime, before all this happens, we're standing before the inning started. I'm standing with Darryl Strawberry down by the bat rack, and Zimmer's telling us, "Hey guys, the guy throws 100 miles an hour. Get it ready," that type of thing. And I only had 2 baseball bats left. I had broke 2 during batting practice that day, and I was catching Pettit in Game 5 the next day. And Strawberry had a brand new dozen bats from Mizuno. And I said, Straw, dude, this guy throws 100. I can't afford to break another bat. Can I use one of those new Mizunos? He's like, yeah, go ahead, take one of them. So I grabbed one of Darryl Strawberry's bats out of his box, put the pine tar on it, and then, of course, went up to go hit. And I worked the count to 2-2. He threw a slider. I just barely fouled it off. I thought for sure he's going to come back with a fastball. He threw another slider. It hung, and I was able to hit the home run.
That's what Cecil said. Fucked around, threw your slider.
Yeah. And it was, it was one of those things that I should be floating around the bases.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You should be, but
I should be. But all I could think about was I hit a huge home run in '95, and we didn't win. This just tied the game up. We got to win the game, and we got to win the series for this to mean something.
That's right.
So sure enough, probably the best thing that happened to me was that Wade Boggs got a walk and not a base hit to win the game in extra innings. So it wasn't,
I didn't think of that,
it wasn't like a big, he walked, not a big deal. But the home run is looked at as what was the changing point in that World Series. And then, of course, we go on to win the World Series. We win Game 4. All of a sudden, we go into the locker room, and Torrey's like, guys, you did it. We're going back to New York. These guys are not going to like it. And what really it did for Andy Pettit was it was able to relax him because now he wasn't pitching a deciding game. That if we lost it, we were still going back to New York to play. And I think it really relaxed him a lot more.
Did you catch Game 5?
I caught Game 5, and he pitched a 1-0 shutout. Probably the best game he's ever pitched in the postseason. And I think a lot of it had to do.
What is it like going out? And you don't have to tell the stories or anything, but what was it like going out that night after Game 4?
Well, I had all my family in town. So we went down to the bar. We were hanging out at the bar. And
especially in Atlanta, like you're messing around. And,
yeah. But we were sitting in the hotel bar, and my wife is we were all drinking, and my parents ended up going to bed because they're a little older. And a bunch of guys were going down to another bar and said, hey, why don't you come with us? And we're like, sure, let's go. So we went down, and we hung out. The night before, when I hit the home run, I was out till 4 or 5 in the morning at Buckhead and all the bars in New York, because I didn't think I was playing Game 4. So I had a night off. And then, of course, I hit the home run. So I was like, okay, we got to go out and at least have a little bit of fun. And so we went and stayed out till like 3 or 4 in the morning, and then went back.
Game 5, do it again, win again.
Game 5, 1-0 victory. We head back to New York. We start Game 6, and Maddox is pitching.
Did it rain again for Game 6?
It had a little bit of rain before.
It did, right?
Yeah, batting practice.
That's right.
And
I didn't go to the game, but I remember it.
Yeah, and then Maddox pitched for them, and he was pitching great through the first 4 innings, and all of a sudden Joe Girardi steps up and hits the big triple.
That's right.
And then Jeter comes through with the base hit, and we tack on a few more runs, and pretty much.
Did you catch Game 6 now?
No, that was Girardi. I didn't play it all in Game 6.
You didn't play it all in Game 6, and then you win. What's that feeling like? Winning
It was unbelievable. We're all sitting around home. We're all sitting.
Charlie Hayes catches the ball.
Charlie Hayes catches. We all get on the mound. We're all hugging each other, and Torrey grabs me and goes, Leyritz, get these guys together and take a lap and thank these fans.
Yep.
So I got everybody in the line, and we all went around and we did a lap, and we thanked all the fans and everything else. And then, of course, we go into the locker room, and the champagne's going, and everybody's Joe's in tears, and Reggie's in there going, "Hey Joe, I told you could do it," that type of thing. And it was just really such a special feeling, especially for me.
Sure.
because even Michael Kay said it in one of the interviews. He said, the guy that's probably enjoying this the most is Jim Leyritz because he was here when in the
It was tough,
90s
yeah.
when they stunk
That's right.
and they were losing 97 games. He was because in 96 I was the longest tenured Yankee because
Wow.
Mattingly had it just left. He was.
When did Bernie come?
Bernie came in 1992.
92, okay.
Yeah. So I was there
were
for
the longest.
6 years, and I was the longest tenured Yankee that season.
And you guys went some tough times in the 80s.
Oh God, 1990, 91, 92 were just
horrible.
horrible. Yeah, but it did what it did. When George got suspended during that time,
That's right.
it opened up the door for Gene Michael and Buck Showalter to build from the younger players. And when those younger players started coming up, Bernie Williams, Derek Jeter, Andy Pettit, Sterling Hitchcock, all of a sudden we started building from within. That's when the Yankees became the Yankees.
So 97 comes, you're playing with them. Same kind of season, you win it all. Right? No, 97 you lose.
So in 97, I get traded
You got traded in
to
97.
Anaheim.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I thought you were there for 97. I got traded
No,
in 98,
no,
97.
after I hit the home run, I asked for a trade because I
Okay.
said
You wanted to
to
play.
Mr. Steinberg I wanted a chance to play every day. And he asked Torrey if I was going to get that in New York. And Joe said he's going to be in the same position he was last year. And so they were able to give me a chance to go play in Anaheim. I got a 3-year contract, the first 3-year contract of my career.
That's awesome.
Up in the first 7 years, I had a 1-year deal every year, so you never knew what you were going to get.
That's right.
So I got a 3-year deal and went to Anaheim. Was in Anaheim, Texas, Boston, San Diego between 97 and 98. We lose to the Yankees in the World Series with the Padres in 98.
What's that like? Because we talked about that.
Yeah.
If you want to tell the story about the first game, that's...
Yeah, I mean, it was really kind of cool because we played the first game in Yankee Stadium, and they introduced, Tony Gwynn, Kelly Veras,
Did you get booed?
Ken Caminiti, and they're all getting booed, booed. And then they introduced Greg Vaughn. He gets booed, and then it's me, and I get a standing ovation.
That's why I said
Yeah,
it.
standing ovation, and everybody, and then all of a sudden Wally Joyner gets introduced, and it's back to the booze.
Yep.
And as Wally's running out, he's like, "Thanks, Leyritz, I appreciate that." But as soon as the first pitch was thrown, I was getting booed because now I was the enemy.
That's right.
But it was quite it was a series that got turned on one pitch or two pitches. Tino Martinez should have been struck out by Mark Langston.
That's right.
And instead of getting a strikeout, the next pitch he hits the grand slam, and that changed the entire World Series.
Wasn't what game was it where he was sick? He had food poisoning.
Well, that was Kevin Brown.
Kevin Brown.
Game 1.
That was game 1, right?
Yeah, literally he came out of the game because he was throwing up in his mitts.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he came out of the game, and then Langston came in and pitched?
No, that's when Joey Hamilton came in.
Joey
I mean, Donnie Wall came in and pitched.
Okay.
He gave up the 3-run homer to Oblak
Oh, that's what
to
it was.
tie the
Okay.
game up.
Okay.
And then Tino hit the grand slam with the game tied.
Oh, that's what it
Yeah,
was.
to put them ahead.
And then game 2, you got shellacked, right?
Game 2, Andy Ashby shows up with food poisoning.
Yeah.
We still think to this day that the concierge or the food people at the
Hyatt?
Grand Hyatt
Yeah.
put something in there because they both ate room service. Yeah, because they were
Possible.
pitchers, they didn't want to go out,
Yeah.
and they both got food poisoning,
Oh, wow.
and both of them weren't 100% the first 2 games.
Thanks to the
So-
Grand Hyatt.
Exactly.
47. My office was right there, remember?
Yeah.
Brings back horrible memories, I guess,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So,
And then
But-
you go back to San Diego.
so
What's the mood like? Again, going that plane ride, you have to be telling everybody on the plane, I've been here before.
yeah.
What's
Yeah,
the mood like?
we lose the first 2 games, and we're like, we're not out of it yet.
Right.
But they're kind of going, yeah, but man, that's a team of destiny. You can just tell the way they carry themselves, the way they're playing, and then of course we get to game 3. We're leading again. We bring in Trevor Hoffman, who's our Mariano Rivera,
Yep.
and Hell's Bells plays, and the stadium's going nuts. The one thing great about San Diego is we played in a football stadium.
I know. It was loud.
70,000 people. It was nuts.
Well, Paul O'Neill, what did Paul say? And I was talking to him one day, and I asked him about it, and he said the same thing, where he said the minute they played Hell's Bells was the most alive that he saw the stadium, and he goes, and immediately he was dead. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, yeah. So sure enough, Trevor comes in and gives up the 3-run homer
That's
to
right.
Brocious,
that's right.
and that just changed everything.
That's
You know,
right.
and that's when I think we all go like, you know what, we're going to play game 4, but this is a team of destiny.
And then what
You
happened in game 4?
know? And then game 4, they they scored early and beat us.
And who set the parties up for them in Game 4?
So that's the funny part. Yeah, because the weird thing was in the old stadium, because it was a football stadium, the locker rooms are actually next to each other.
Yep.
And so as I'm leaving, Mr. Steinbrenner sees me and he says, "Hey, Leyritz, are you the king of San Diego like you were in New York?" I go, "Well, yeah." And he said, "These guys need a place to go celebrate the World Series. You have any suggestions?" I said, I called Junior Seau because I had Junior's number, and I said, "Junior, can you keep your restaurant open for the Yankees? They're going to come down." And about 12 or 14 guys came down, and
That's awesome.
I ended up going down with them. And, of course, got out in the paper the next day, and the San Diego fans weren't too happy that I was celebrating our loss
There you go.
with the winning team.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing, Rich, is I always tell this. I just told this story yesterday at Yankee Stadium because we're playing the Padres.
That's what I was going to say.
And I give Yankee Stadium tours, and I was giving a tour yesterday that had a few Padre fans on it also. And I said, here's the funny story I'm going to tell you guys is that I was asked one day, what's the difference between playing in New York in a World Series and then playing in San Diego in a World Series? And I said, well, when you lose a World Series in New York, you don't leave your house for 3.5 weeks.
That's right.
We lost a World Series in San Diego, and the next day we had a parade.
That's insane, right?
It's a completely thing. And it was funny, the two people from San Diego on my tour go, "Yeah, that's because we appreciate any kind of postseason."
I just got back from San Diego.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, so-
It's that's funny. So then
the good thing about San Diego was we ended up in August of that year, they voted on the new stadium, Petco Park. And it wasn't gonna go through by the numbers they had. Because of the run that we went on through the World Series, the entire town got behind it.
okay.
And in November of that year, the bill passed for new Petco Park. So they give that 98 Padre team credit
for that.
for getting the new stadium. So the funny part about it was last year or 2 years ago, I'm sitting in the suites in Yankee Stadium working with Jeff Nelson. And I get a phone call from the San Diego people, and it says, and I put it on speaker because I'm talking. And they go, "Hey, we need your information. We're bringing you back for the 25th anniversary of the 98 team." And Nelly kind of looked at me and he goes, "What?" And so after I got hung up, I go, "What's up?" He goes, "Dude, do they know they lost that World Series?"
Exactly.
I said, "Yeah, Nelly, but we got approval from Petco Park, and they're very grateful that happened because everybody loves the new park." I go, "So that's why they invite us back
That's so
as
funny.
the team that got the 98.
That is funny though.
Yeah. It is. It's so
hysterical.
funny. So funny.
And then 99 comes, you come home.
99, I start the season with I start the season with the Padres. And I went into Kevin Tower's office. I said, "Why did you trade everybody but me?" He said, "Well, we got a couple young pitchers I want you to work with. And we're going to trade you by July. Don't worry."
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, don't worry. We're trading you by July because I got to get somebody for you. So sure enough, July comes and he calls me up and says, "Hey, I got to deal with the Boston Red Sox. You're going to go back to Boston." I said, "No, I'm not." I
Okay.
said, "Please, Kevin, I don't want to go back." He goes, "Jimmy, I got less than 48 hours. I got to make a deal." I said, "Give me 24. And so I went in and I called up one of George Steinbrenner's assistants. And I said, "Hey, I need you to get a message to George that they're trading me to the Red Sox." And so sure enough, that the person got the word to George, and within 24 hours, I was traded back to the New York
That's
Yankees.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you end up back in New York.
99 World Series, I get one at bat against the Braves, Game 4, and I hit a home run, which becomes the last home run of the century.
That's right.
And it was funny because Jeter and Knobloch were giving me a hard time because I had broke my hand in the halfway point of 99 or 99, yeah. And in batting practice, when I came back to the Yankees, I couldn't hit the ball out. I just didn't have enough strength. And I said to Jeter, I said, "Don't worry, at some point I'll hit a huge home run like I always do." And sure enough, when I got the home run, him and Knobloch are both standing there going, "Are you kidding me?" I'm like, "I told you it was going to happen."
It's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Yeah.
And how big was that home run for you? Was it big, or because the last home
It
run of the
was-
century? It should have been huge, right?
Well, the funny thing is, when I first did it, I
You didn't know.
didn't know. And so
Well, didn't Brandon like?
So what happened was, I get into the locker room, and now I got my whole family there, and my ex-father-in-law now, but father-in-law back then, country guy from North Carolina. He goes, "Hey, Jim, you realize what you just did?" I said, "Yeah, Mick, home run." And he's like, "No, you hit the last home run of the century. And Meat Chafsky was there, and so was Brandon. And I looked at Brandon and I said, might be able to market that. And Brandon goes, I don't think so. And then sure enough, Meat Chafsky says, I'll market it. And so end up working out a deal with QVC that we did 1,999 balls, 1,999 bats, and 1,999 photos. And we went on QVC. And Rich, I don't know if you've ever been to QVC, but back in the day, QVC was the #1 network as far as buying online. And they flew us in a helicopter down to Philadelphia, down to the studios, and we watched how they sold product. And they would sell millions of product in an hour.
It's amazing what they do, right?
So we had now 2,000 balls, 2,000 bats, basically 6,000 pieces. Yeah. They sold it in 8 hours.
Wow.
It was the most amazing thing I had ever seen. Now, the only bad part, I had to sign all that stuff.
I was going to say
it took me 2.5 weeks
to sign 8,000.
Because I had to sign Jim Leyritz, number 13. Then the baseballs, they would turn, and then they came back and turned them again. I had to write last home run of the century. So it was.
You had to do that with bats, balls,
everything. Yeah.
Lucky you didn't do bases.
I know.
Jerseys, right? That's crazy.
But it was, and I made $350,000, and it was a good
day,
good little run.
Now, why don't you sign that though anymore?
I do.
Oh, you do.
But it's a special signing.
Okay, there you go.
I tell people, you can get my autograph in a inscription for maybe $10 extra for the inscription. Well, the last home run of the century cost $25.
There you go.
Because it's something special.
That is. It's really special.
And I signed 100 balls for my kids that I kept, 100 balls aside, that I said to them, hand these down to your kids. So the next century, when someone hits a home run,
you can pass them along.
They can pass them along, and they can make
Smart. Yeah, it's a good play. Who hit the last home run in the 1900s?
Well, no, that was me.
No, the 1800s going into the 19th century.
That's a good question. I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't think that was just it. It had never been done. No one had ever done it before.
Well, nobody kept record of it.
Right.
That's what it is. Yeah. Wow.
So
if you know who that person is,
try
to hook up and get a signature, sign something that they signed, and there you go.
Yeah.
And then you pass that down. So then 2001 is the year you retire, or you played another couple of years?
No, I end up getting hurt. So so 2000, I'm on the team till August. Chuck Knobloch can't throw the ball to first base.
I remember that. Yeah.
I get traded to the Dodgers for Jose Vizcaino.
Okay. When did you get traded? In July?
August.
August.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go to the Dodgers. I end up going to Dodgers. I end up playing the outfield for a couple games, and I end up running into the wall, separating my shoulder, and then all of a sudden, like it really hurting it 2 days later, and then had surgery. Back then, HGH was just starting. So the doctor said, at your age, because I was 36 years old, he said, at your age, I'd probably try the HGH.
Yep.
Wasn't against the rules. There was nothing against the rules.
Sure.
And so I tried it and went to spring training that year with the Mets.
Oh, that's right. You played
yeah,
for a second.
And ended up hurting it again. Went through a whole other thing of rehab. 2002, I went to spring training with the Yankees. Ended up hurting it again.
Oh, wow.
Finally just said, you know what, I'm not going to take anything anymore. I'm just going to get stronger, make myself better. By 2003, I was ready to come back. And I had just gotten custody of my 3 boys who were 2, 7, and 9. And the judge in Florida said, if you go back to play, or Kevin Towers called me up and said, I got $1 million contract if you want to come back and play for the Padres. And I went to the judge in Florida and said, I got a chance to get all my money back that I just spent getting custody. I said, and the judge said, if you go back to play, you lose your kids.
Oh, wow.
And so I retired right then.
Small move.
Yeah, and that was it.
Yep. So you retire, and
then God, I didn't know how I was going to. I had $25,000 to my name.
Wow, it's crazy.
I had no idea how I was going to support my family, how I was going to take care of my kids. And sure enough, this new internet radio show was starting with MLB.com. And they said, you know what, you can do this from your house. And I was raising the boys, so it was perfect. I was able to take the kids to school, come home between 11 and 1, do the radio show, and then go back to school and pick the kids up and develop some TV and radio. And between 2002 to 2005, I started doing this we started off 3 days a week, 11 to 1. Then it went 5 days a week, 11 to 1. Then the third year, it went to 5 days a week. But I need you to come to New York because we're building studios and we're going to start doing studio shows. And so all of this was happening. And eventually between 2002 and 2007, I was making $500,000 a year working for MLB.com, the Yankees, and Fox, and Fox and ESPN.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then when did you decide to get into title?
So in 2015, Mike and Rich Cave, who used to own First Equity, I don't know if they're still in business anymore, but they owned a company called First Equity. And they had a spokesperson named Doc Gooden.
Oh, Doc, that's right.
And Doc was going through some tough times. And he wasn't showing up at events, and he wasn't, they couldn't rely on him for anything. And they asked me to fill in for a couple of
Dino, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
So they asked for me, they asked Dean Spinato if he knew anybody that could fill in for Doc. And Dean and I were good friends, and Dean said, hey, Jimmy's in town, he'll come. I ended up doing an event for them, and there was like 250 real estate people there, and I Googled title, what's title, because I didn't know. And so I was smart enough in that conversation to talk to some people, and Mike and Rich are like, how do you know anything about title? I said, well, I Googled it, And they said, well, listen, we want you to be the spokesperson. We'll pay you a salary for a spokesperson, but we'll pay you 50% on any title work that you bring in. Well, listen, I knew, I was at Yankee Stadium every night working. I knew all of these people. And so I started working for them. The great thing about it was one of the things that I can't thank them enough till this day is that it gave me an opportunity after everything that I went through with the court case and everything else that we don't have enough time to talk about. They gave me a second chance to do something on a give back to charity and to foundations and to get my name back out there doing what I was doing before I had the accident, the charity work I was doing. And it just worked out perfect. And then, of course, I knew enough people in title and real estate to be able to get their title work. And I started building a really good book of title. And then, unfortunately, COVID hit. We lost all the events that we were doing. So I was no longer needed as a spokesperson. And I was able to move from First Equity to AmTrust title to start doing more commercial than residential. And I've been doing that ever since. And, now I'm still doing title work. And I'm kind of a free agent, but, it's one of those things that it's really no different than anything that I had been doing for the Yankees in the suites, just being networking and doing things like that. And to be able to work in the suites and people are going, oh, what do you do now these days, Jimmy? And I'm like, oh, I do title. Oh, I'm in real estate. Let's do business together, And people want to do business that are Yankee fans with a Yankee.
That's right.
And so I was able to really build up a really good business and learn more and more and more about what the title business was.
You got a bunch of title from us before, right? The real estate agents and the brokers and all of that, right?
I mean, I even got my real estate license for a short time, thinking that might be another route.
That's right.
And I was like, well, title pays pretty much.
It does. It does. And it was funny. You remember this when we went out on the listing appointments together.
Yeah.
Because I did a survey, and every one of them wanted to choose Jimmy over me. Yep. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now, what do you got? What are you looking forward?
You know what? There's a lot going on. I just got an opportunity to do a documentary. It's in the bidding wars right now. But there's a guy that approached me about. I spoke to him at one of the Yankee games in the suites, and he's like, I'm a huge Jim Leyritz fan. And when I told him the story about everything that had happened to me during what I mentioned before the trial, and everything that went wrong, and everything that was going on, and how I was wrongly accused of a bunch of things, and but I had to wait for my day in court to be able to prove everything. And I started telling him these stories. He's like, oh my God, I'm a huge Leyritz fan, and I never knew any of these things.
That's wild.
He said, has anybody ever approached you about doing a documentary? I said, you know what? People have talked about it, but no one's ever really taken that that step. And this guy's like, you know what? I'm going to call you in a couple months. I'm going to figure out. And sure enough, we've got this in the works, and I'm looking forward to it.
When do you think it's going to hit?
Yeah, it'll be a while. It'll
Yeah.
probably be 12 months before.
It's funny, you were talking earlier about the Pete Rose one. Did you see that one?
Yeah.
That was a really,
Yeah.
I didn't finish watching it. It was HBO, I think. That did it, right?
HBO that was a great one. Doc and Daryl, they did one.
Right.
That was a great one. I talked about all their their experiences together and everything. And I mean, for me, it was just it's an opportunity for like I said, people that even knew me didn't even know half the stuff that happened to me.
I went through that with you. We talked about it. It's
Yeah.
insane what happened.
Exactly. So I think this will be a good opportunity, but even more so to help me with because I still run into situations where people are like, oh, we didn't know that, we
Mhm.
didn't know that, and it cost me some business because people Google,
Of course.
and it was never certain things were never ever covered what actually happened. But anyway, so yeah, so I'm doing that now. The Yankees have been good enough to be able to bring me back and hire me to work in the stadium. Howie Schwartz, who works for Grandstand Auctions. They auction off an item at all the charity events that they do to take a private tour with Jim Leyritz at Yankee Stadium. And so they auction it off. We make money for the charity. And then I give the tours. I give about 25, 30 of them every year.
That's cool.
And it's really kind of cool. Like I just gave one yesterday and the people were like, oh my God, this is so cool because we get not just the history of the Yankees, but stories of what, of one of the Yankees that was during all that time.
I think that was the last time we were at the game. We were downstairs and we're in the Legends.
Yeah.
And you sat and the girl's like looking over.
Yeah.
That was hysterical.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm doing now. I got remarried. I've lived out in
I was
California.
going to ask you to bring up the bride.
Yeah,
How's she doing?
listen. So in 2008, after I had my accident, I was given a book called The Purpose-Driven Life by this pastor named Rick Warren, and this was 2008. And then in 2009, the book changed my life forever. And then in 2009, I was at Yankee Stadium opening day, and went to the game during the day, and then at night went to a restaurant. Ended up meeting this girl and her girlfriend. They were hanging out. They were getting bothered by a bunch of guys. I pulled her out and said, "You can sit with us." We just started talking. She was going through a divorce. I had custody of my kids. She had no idea who I was. It was anything.
Good thing, huh?
And I bought her a drink for her birthday, and she's like, "Where's yours?" I said, "Well, I'm going through some legal things right now. I can't." And she goes, "Oh my God, please tell me you're not from Florida." And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, I am." She goes, "The bartender's been telling me about this great guy I should meet who's going through a DUI manslaughter trial. And as soon as he said that, I swore you off like I never wanted to meet you. Can't believe I've been sitting here for an hour and a half talking to you, and you're that guy. What's going on?" I said, "Well, I'm facing 15 years in jail. I've got a state attorney running to become a judge, and she won't let my case go, even though all of the evidence is in our favor, that this shouldn't even go to court." I said, "But I have to wait for my day." And she's like, and I still have custody of my kids. And she said, "But you seem so normal." And I said, "Well, it's because I read this book called The Purpose-Driven Life by this pastor named Rick Warren." And Rich, she turned white. And I was like, "Oh, I played the God card. She's leaving." Right? And she looked at me and she goes, "That's the pastor of my church. I go to his church in California."
Wow.
That's how we ended up starting to talk to each other. And one thing led to another. We dated long distance for a while. She was afraid that when she started really liking me, she said, "I was falling in love with you." She read all the evidence. She read all the depositions. She said, "You're going to be innocent, and I'm going to stay with you through this whole thing." So she stayed with
She's
me.
a special woman. She's an awesome.
Yeah.
She is an awesome.
So she
lady.
stayed with me through the trial.
Cool.
After the trial was over, the judge called me in and said, "Mr. Leyritz, this should have never went to court. We didn't know that the state attorney had put her judge's papers in. Where do you want to go? You had a DUI, first time offense. That's it. Where do you want to go?" And I said, "Can I go to California?" And he said, "Go." And so in 2011, I moved to California, and I've been out there ever since. And Michelle and I eventually got married. My three boys, her two girls, we were a Brady bunch for about 10 years. They're all grown and out of the house, and we're finally kind of empty nesters. And now I've been able, over the last 2 or 3 years, to finally start coming back to New York to get my name back, because I had made her a promise when I moved there that I would never go back till the kids were growing, because I didn't want to saddle her with 5 children, and my kids who had already been through everything that they had been through.
Yep.
So once the boys were on their own and doing their own thing, she's like,
No, you could do it.
You can go back to work because my daughter's got to go through college and we need to pay for that.
There you go. And where is she now? She's in her final year, right?
Well,
Or she's
my
just-
oldest one graduated.
Oh, she just graduated?
Yeah, and my other one's a junior in college.
That's right.
So yeah, we got
She graduated last year. She graduated with Nina.
Yeah,
my daughter.
TCU. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then the youngest one went to,
she's at a college in California. This will be her junior.
which one
year.
went to Marist? The one
She started at Marist and she didn't like
she
it.
didn't like it.
Yeah, and so she came back home to California, and now she'll be starting her junior year.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
quick they grow up.
Oh,
Right?
it's crazy.
So we got a little bit of time left. What hardest pitcher you ever faced?
Randy Johnson in his heyday.
Really?
Yeah, 6'10", left side, coming off that mound, and he was what we call in the game effectively wild, just wild enough that you couldn't dig in, and he wasn't doing it on purpose. He just was that wild.
Wow.
You know, he was the toughest I ever had to face.
Hardest closer?
I was 3 for 4 against Mariano, so that wasn't a hard one. Probably. I didn't really have too many. I usually hit pretty good against the closer. That was my forte, was
That's right.
hitting in the late innings. But probably if I had to pick one, I would say it was probably Jeff Reardon for the Boston Red Sox.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And who was the rivalries? You've been
Yeah, I mean,
part of a couple of them.
well, the early 90s,
Wasn't really a rivalry.
there was still a hatred.
yeah, it's a hatred. Back
There was
then.
a hatred
That's right.
back then. Right around 94, 95, when guys started changing teams, and one year a guy would play for the Red Sox, the next year he played for the
Nice,
Yankees.
yeah,
It was crazy. That rivalry didn't. It's still a rivalry, but it wasn't. It was more the fans than it was the players.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the players didn't really care,
Yeah.
but not didn't care, but they weren't
Right.
really into it.
Right.
And then manager-wise, who was the? If you want to say that.
No, listen, I had great managers. Buck Showalter was probably the smartest manager I ever played for.
Okay.
Joe Torre was probably the best manager of people.
Yep.
And then he had Don Zimmer sitting next to him, so there was a baseball people thing right there that was no better combination. But Bruce Bochy, I think, probably was one of my favorites just because I think I was born a National League player because I could play so many positions. And every night in a National League game, you had a chance to play because of the pinch hitting, because of the double switches and everything that would happen in the National League, where Bochy basically, when I went over there, said, Jim, I know you used to have fun in New York and go out at night and because you weren't playing, you get a chance to play every day here.
Okay.
So I need you ready every night.
Wow.
And so it was a little bit different atmosphere. And it was better for me because that's all I asked for was a chance to play. And now I had that opportunity with San Diego in the National League to be able to play every night.
That's awesome. Silly question, but curious. And somebody asked, a buddy of mine asked me to ask you this. What's more memorable, your first game or your home runs?
That's a good one.
That is a good question, right?
That's a good one. I would say, unless it's a 1996 World Series home run that changes everything, probably my first at bat, my first time up, because I got a base hit my first time
What'd
up.
you face?
I faced Greg Olson, who was the Baltimore Orioles closer in that. He was the Mariano Rivera
Right
back in
then.
that day.
That's right.
And he was 13 for 13 in saves that season when I faced him for the first time. And I got a base hit and he blew the save.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got my first base hit. So that was a pretty big moment as far as
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then coaches wise, like leadership, who was the best leaders like in the clubhouse that you ever been? I know you were a leader.
Well, I was a loud guy. I was the guy that, if we were having trouble hitting, I'd grab all the bats together and wake up, let's go. And I was doing the hot foots on the bench, and I was kind of the fun guy.
Joker guy.
But really, honestly, those teams in the dynasty years, David Cohn was kind of the anchor of the pitching staff.
Okay.
He was kind of looked at as the leader. Paul O'Neill, with his fiery play, was kind of a leader. And, Jeter, surprisingly, kind of took over, I wouldn't even say a leadership role in the beginning, just a player that carried himself with confidence as such a young kid, and just his workout routine stayed the same. Just because he was successful, it didn't change. All of a sudden, he didn't become full of himself. He continued to do the same workouts, the same thing that he did his entire career. I was really curious when I got traded away in '97. And then I came back in 99. He had won now 2 World Series. He was Rookie of the Year. He had all these accolades. He was living in Manhattan. He was the big guy. And when I showed up at the ballpark for the very first time in Texas in June or July, when it's steaming hot, who was at the ballpark early but taking ground balls and getting ready for a game was Derek Jeter.
That's interesting.
And I thought that was just such a special thing.
It is. And so here's another question. This is me now, not one of my buddies. Pete Rose or Jeter, harder player?
Oh, Pete Rose. I mean, Jeter had 10 times more ability than Pete Rose did. You know,
But out hustle, everything is.
Yeah.
You think Jeter got that same play from Pete Rose watching him or no?
Well, Jeter said he grew up a Yankee fan.
Okay, so it wasn't.
Yeah, his favorite player was Dave Winfield.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be the same as Pete Rose watching.
But yeah, and Pete was a loudmouth, you know, considered a hot dog. He called it confidence, depending on who you were talking to.
Sure.
Right. Pete was more the raw rock kind of guy, kind of like I was. Derek was more like Don Mattingly, was like a leader by example. You know, what he was doing. He was very, you know, he was the first one to greet a guy when he had a home run and, you know, that type of thing. But he wasn't very loud. And every time the New York media needed something and wanted to get a quote, he was very
Even killed.
Yeah, very vanilla.
That's right.
And so he just did, like I always tell people, 20 years in New York and you're the superstar and you don't have one blemish.
Something to be said about
except
that.
for a couple girls.
That's it.
You know,
It's not wrong with that though.
yeah. I say, but he knew how to do things the right way. And there's nobody, I don't think, like I said, there's nobody that's done it better in the 20 years of playing in New York than he did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And if you had to do it all over again, and you could have one thing change in your baseball career, what would it be? Would it be your foot, like when you were a kid, or?
I mean, no, because I may have never been a New York Yankee.
That's true.
I would have been an Atlanta Brave.
Right. You might hit that home run the opposite way. So
no, I honestly, I always say this. I wouldn't change a thing about my career. I might have been a little bit more patient with waiting to become an everyday player. That might be one thing that I might have been better at.
Okay.
But I also think too that there was a certain edge that I got because I wasn't playing every day that kept me motivated, that kept me, you know, a little chip. They always say the chip on the shoulder. So I think, like I said, I don't think I'd want to change that. I don't think I'd want to, you know, if I could change anything, it would be the accident that I had that the woman passed away. You know, that would be the one thing that I wish I could change. But other than that, there's, you know, I wouldn't be the man I am today had I not gone through some of these struggles. And, you know, when that documentary comes out, you'll see.
Hopefully I get a sneak peek of it.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see everything. So.
Jim, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, sir. Look forward to hanging you out.
Appreciate it.
And I'll talk to you soon, bud.
Yeah,
Thanks so much, brother.
Yeah.